it says in D6 our standard is, I can solve linear equations involving rational numbers and justify the solution path. So you got to be able to explain why. So as we are looking at these notes, so everyone should be on their notes on D6. And you're going to be filling in these blanks, and they're asking us, this would be how we modeled the equation the other day when we were looking at doing our algebra tiles. We had x plus 2 is equal to 3x. Okay? So as we are looking at that, thank you. So as we were looking at that, we kind of showed that with this is our x plus 2 equals 3x's on this side. So when we were looking at our using the algebra tiles the other day, the first thing we did was we took the smallest number away from both sides. So if this is our equation, we are going to, first step, subtract x from both sides. Please write that in your notes. Subtract x from both sides. This is on D6. So our first step, what we're doing to justify is we're always getting all the variables on one side. Okay? The next thing we are taking a look at is we now have, we got rid of those x's on both sides, and we have 2x's equaling 2, which means we would simply next divide both sides by 2. And when you divide both sides by 2, you get our solution, which is that each x and across from each one is a 1. So we would say x equals 1 because we were simplifying, would be our last step. So when we divide it by 2. You always want to do, as you do the problems, you always want to remove the smallest x first, okay? So when you're looking at it, you always want to identify what's your smallest variable, and you always want to get rid of that on the side, either by adding or subtracting it to get it by the variables all on one side of your equal sign. So if we are reading this situation, it says 2 trees are planted in a yard. Tree 1 is 14 inches taller than tree 2. Tree 1 grows at a rate of 6 inches per year, and tree 2 grows at a rate of 8 inches per year. In how many years will they be the same height? Now, we do not know how tall tree 2 was. We just know that this one is 14 inches taller. And so what we want to do is, it says sometimes it's easier to write a model in words first. This is called our word model. That's what this is right here. This is a word model. And when you do your quiz and your test in the last part of this unit, I will ask you sometimes to do a word model before you write the equation to solve. So we are going to solve this one, and we're going to write it. So the additional height, what did we know? It was 14. Plus, how fast is that tree 2 growing? How many inches per year is tree 2 growing? 8. And we don't know the number of years, so we put 8y. Okay? This should be tree 1, not tree 2. Should be a 6. Does that make sense? It should be 6. Tree 1 was 14 inches taller, and it grows 6 inches per year. Equals, this should be tree 1, and then over here is tree 2. So tree 2, what was the rate we were using for tree 2?
14.81. Right.
Sorry, Sammy, didn't see you over there. Here. All right, so 8y. So we now have this equation. So Kennedy, I want to get rid of my smaller y. How do I do it? We're going to subtract. We're going to subtract, in this case, 6y. Because in front of the 6, it was a positive. It was plus 6, so we're going to subtract 6y from both sides. And we get 2y is equal to 14. And if we are solving it, what are we going to do to solve that problem, Dylan? Divide both sides by. Now, here's the biggest mistake where I've seen people make it in their homework. They don't like to put this y here. I just see people put minus 6. Well, you can't really take 6y minus 6. I don't know if you realize that, but they have to have that variable with it. 14 minus 6 you can do, but if you're putting this, you have to keep the variable with it. Notice here, when you put the y, you are not dividing by 2y. You are only dividing by the coefficient of y, which is the 2. You do not put the y in the denominator. So I'll often see that with students, which is a mistake. So if we are talking about when will the trees be the same height, they'll be the same height in 7 years. Okay? So y was equal to 7. So your homework tonight that you are working on is going to look something like this, where you're going to have these types of problems. Okay? When you read this one, Noah, would you read the problem first?
Each side of the triangle has the same length. What is the perimeter of the triangle?
So, our word model, if each side is the same length and one side is 3x plus 5 and the other is 5x minus 1, the word model would be the two sides are the same. So side 1 of the triangle has to be equal to side 2. Greta, when we look at that, which side do you want to be side 1? Because it doesn't really matter up here. The 5x. So side 1, we're going to put 5x minus 1. So this is our side 1, right, as Greta started this out, which means this has to be side 2. And these two are equal, 3x plus 5. So we have our equation. I want to get rid of the smaller x. Callie, how would I do it? What would I have to do? Subtract, and in this case, put a minus 3x on both sides. Crystal, when I subtract 3x from both sides, what am I looking at? 2x now, right? Keep going. Equals 5. Because these are canceling, that's our 0, right? So Devin, next step.
You would try to get away from -1.
We're going to add 1. So this is when we did the tiles. This is when we had to add, this was like our negative tile, we had to add a positive. But as we're looking at this, we're adding 1. So Adam, I get 2x equals 6. What do I need to do to finish? Divide by 2. And I do that, and have I finished and answered the question? First off, do I even know the length of the side? Because the question says, what is the perimeter? So what's the length of side 1? How long is side 1? Do we have any idea? The only thing we know is that x equals 3. What could I do to find it? Good. Replace the x with 3. So I'm going to go back to side 1 and put 5. But instead of x here, we're going to put what x was equal, which was 3 minus 1. So 15 minus 1 means side 1 has to be 14. Could I check and make sure side 2 gives us the same length? If I wanted to do that, Malcolm, what would I substitute? What would I write down?
15.
Careful. This one gave us 14 already. I want to go to side 2. Side 2 was here, right? How can I make sure that that's going to be the same?
3 times 3.
Because that's my x. So 3 times 3 plus 5. 3 times 3, that gives us 9. 9 plus 5 is 14. So far we know the sides are the same. But the question, we still haven't even answered the question, right? The question said, what is the perimeter? Perimeter of a triangle. What do you have to do to find it? All sides are the same, right? This is 14, this is 14, this is 14. What's one thing I could do? Anyone remember for perimeter, Sophie? I could multiply. So perimeter, I can say because all 3 sides are the same, I can take 3 times the side length, which in this case would be 3 times 14, right? If I multiply 3 times 14, we're going to end up with 42. So my perimeter equals 42. We don't know what unit they're measuring it in, if it's centimeters or meters, so we're just going to put 42, and I think they have units when you're filling that in right here. So 42 units. This question will come up on the test. We have a test in a few weeks. This question comes up on the quiz. you will see at least 3 like this in your homework where they say these 2 sides are the same as you're doing, and if not in tonight's homework, for sure in tomorrow's homework where it'll look just like this. And they'll say, find what x is, find the side length. So here would be our side lengths. This would be the perimeter. So if when you're, some of you, if you happen to be gone tomorrow, or you're just off track tomorrow in class and not paying attention, you could go back and watch this video and it'd help you out with how to do those story problems. So we got a couple more story problems that we want to look at. This one asks us to write a model and solve it. Anyone want to volunteer to read the problem so I don't have to? Aaron, you got this one, so you can look at doing one of the examples. Go,
You
Aaron.
pay $50 for a fitness center membership. Karate lessons at the center cost $6 each for a member and $10 each for non-members. You take 3 lessons and your friend who is a non-member. Wait, you take 3 more lessons than your friend who is a non-member. For what number of lessons will your pay? I can't even talk. Your friend pay for the same amount.
So we want to start out and think of our word model. So if you're not a member, you just pay $10 every time you go in, right? So non-member, and this is our cost per lesson, right? Non-member cost per lesson. And we're going to take that times the lessons, which we don't even know what they are, right? That's going to be equal to our membership fee, right? When we have to pay this initial fee. So our membership fee plus how much we pay per lesson, which we pay a lot less, okay? The cost per lesson. And how many lessons did the member take? How many more? They took 3 more than the friend who's a non-member. So if this one happens to be X, and we don't know how many lessons, this person took X plus 3. They took 3 more lessons. Does that make sense to you? 3 more lessons than what this person took. How much did the non-member pay? $10 for each lesson. That's going to be equal to, what is our fee? We had to pay up front $50. Plus, the member pays how much per lesson? 6. And it's for 3 more lessons than the non-member. So X plus 3. So when we go to solve this, we got to use some distributive property to start us off. So Brooke, if we are solving with distributive property, because one of the most common things is I have people want to put 56 here, but we don't want to do that. So, Brooke, help us out. We're going to go 50 plus what? 6x, nice. And plus 18. I now want to add my like terms. And I will see some people do these 2 steps together. And I'm okay if you can do the 2 steps together. So Kennedy, if I was thinking of removing the smallest x from both sides, what would you do? Remove 6 by taking away, right? If those were the tiles, we would have subtracted 6x from both sides, okay? And I end up with 4x. And now I want to add the like terms on this side. So 50 plus 18, Natalie, if I'm adding those, gives us 68. And we're going to want to solve by dividing both sides by 4. My coefficient of x, which is 4. I had someone tell me they would have divided by 68 in one of the problems. They wanted to just get, I'm not sure why, but make sure it's always divided by that coefficient. So, how many lessons are we talking about? Use your calculator if you need to. X comes out to equal 17. So, the question is, for what number of lessons will your friend pay the same amount of you? Your friend has to pay for 17 lessons. And he pays the same for 17 lessons. How many lessons did you end up taking? You took 20. Your friend pays 17 for 17 lessons, pays the same as when you take 20. So who knows? It could be a good deal if he doesn't go that often, right? Or it takes him a long time. So when we look at these problems on the top of this page, what I want you to do is I want you to do question number 2. I'm going to do number 3 as you're trying number 2. Then we're going to do number 5. And actually we'll do number 4 and 6. So 2, 4, 6. We're going to do those even ones. I want people to come up and show me their work. We're going to put them up on the board. So 2, 4, 6. I'm going to put the answers for the other ones because I just want you to see those answers. And you can put them in on your notes. And if you want to go back and do the work, this one comes out as 2/3. Just like when we took your quiz last week. And you got 2/3 and some of you thought it was wrong to get that fractional answer. I got some tests to hand back also. So I'm going to so if I'm looking at solving these, number 2 that we solved, as I said, as I look at number 3, the mistake easily is made to not make this a negative. If you don't have that a -9, and that really happens a lot, that people will make that a negative, make it a +9 if they don't add 5. So my hint is, when Kennedy did it, she subtracted the -4. My hint is always add the smaller one. So if you would have added 5y to both sides. She originally had -5, which if we do the check doesn't work, but 5 does. I would like everyone, here I'll take that one. I would like everyone to do the check for number 6. Actually, let's do the check for 4. If we were going to check 4, someone want to tell me what I would have to do to check this problem? When we got, because if I would have gotten a -5, let's just kind of pretend that we would have had that mistake. How do I check it so when you're taking a quiz, you know how to make sure before you hand it in to do it? Someone want to tell me what I'd write? Kennedy, go. Actually, Kennedy, you've gone. Natalie, I haven't talked much today. Go.
You would do 42.
42.
Minus 5. Times 5.
Yep.
Equals 4 times 5 minus 3.
Now, if we originally would have had a -5, right? She had a -5 originally when I came to her paper. If you would have done that, you would have had 42 plus 25, right? If it would have been negative, not a minus, okay? And if I would have added those two together, and on this side I would have had a -20 minus 3, there's no way that -23 would ever have been equal to 67, right? That would have been false. But when I changed this to a +5, all of a sudden I could see that, oh, 42 minus 25, and if I subtract those two, 42 minus 25 gives us, and here we're going to have 20 minus 3, which is 17. Is 42 minus 25 17 also? So when I do the check, I get the same answer. So if it is likely that you make mistakes, like just a little negative, okay? You forget a negative out in front here, and then that changes everything else in the problem. Do the quick check. Just plug it in your calculator and see that you are understanding what that number is, okay? So, your homework tonight is the D6. Now, since we handed in